one of the reasons that we wanted to kind of have this talk, all right, and whether it's national politics and people grabbing people's anatomies or deleting emails or whatever the national scuttlebutt is, to the state elections down to local elections, all right, people are going to talk, people are going to gossip, and issues come up that, this person says that and so forth. And so rather than lead us into anything, when you and I first started talking about you coming on and Connie coming on, you had talked about wanting to come on and address some particular issues that you want to get out to the voters in Fairfield. So once again, the mic is yours.
All right. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's an issue that came up even 10 years ago when I first ran for city council. And I remember talking to friends and journaling that I thought this could be a great opportunity to address this issue in a larger audience. And I don't know if I just lacked the courage at the time or just didn't have an opportunity to do so. So it never really happened. But the issue is domestic abuse. And it's hard to say that I've been both the victim of it and the perpetrator of that in my life. The story briefly is, I grew up in a household where there was abuse, and it was passed on father to son, son to brother. And I was the next to youngest. And I look at these kind of things as, I remember how I was as a young child. I was actually, I was extremely empathetic, almost to a fault. I remember one time my dad had a June bug and he flicked it and I started crying. I was like, what's the matter, Michael? I was like, well, Dad hurt the bug. And he had to go find a June bug and show it to me and say, see, it's fine. It's got a hard shell. So that was always my true nature. And so if you think of as a child or anybody as, like a straight piece of rope, and then abuse starts and it starts tying all these knots, these things that are just not, you're not the way, you could be. You're just not as straight and well formed. And you take that into your adult life. And I came into my adult life consciously saying, I will never behave the way these family members behave towards me. I will never treat somebody like that. I know what that feels like, and I would never do that to someone. Mm-hmm. And then I get in my first real intimate relationship, and I start acting that way, which was confusing and extremely shameful for me. And it was so shameful that I didn't seek help right away. I didn't know what to do with it. I felt completely split. I had the person that if you interviewed would say, yeah, abuse is wrong. And I was raised by my mom, to be very equal rights. And I would say all that and I would believe it. And yet this other part of me was behaving in a way that was completely not integrated with that. And it really wasn't until my ex-wife and I, when she was pregnant with her first child, that I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't be this person. I'll never be the kind of father in that negative way. I don't want to say my father was completely negative, but in those ways, I don't want to be that to my children. And so I sought counseling, and I did some anger management, and it helped, but it was the kind of surface level, take a deep breath, count to 10 kind of thing. And again, it was a step in the process. It was, I opened the door to that and walked through. And those knots, aren't so easily untied sometimes. And so I had to continue to go and talk with different therapists and work on it over the years. And it got to the point where it was in the past. And my ex-wife at the time acknowledged that. And it was great to be seen, for the progress that I'd made, that I saw the issue clearly, I addressed it, I did what needed to be done and changed my behavior. And then our divorce came. And again, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to talk about my ex-wife. She doesn't want to be talked about either. Sure. But I can just simply say that the narrative changed, and the narrative became that I was abusive from day one to the last day. And that narrative was spread far and wide for reasons I don't fully understand. I understand that it could have been used to gain an advantage in the divorce proceedings and the custody especially, to frame it that way. But it was really shared really publicly, and this is 2007. And I struggled with it. And then I think the kind of the deepest, darkest time in my life was 2008 when my ex-wife moved to South Dakota with our children. And I was lost. I mean, I had been their full-time dad for 3 years while I was doing night school. I didn't know what to do with myself. I felt myself slipping into despair, and that's when I turned to service. I started volunteering, and it helped. And so I really got kind of caught up in just volunteering as much as possible, serving on boards and commissions and doing all that kind of work, just in a selfish way to keep myself from being depressed. And then I saw this opportunity to run for city council, and I had the thought, like, with my past, who am I to run for this position? Who am I to step up and say, vote for me to serve as a representative on this council? I struggled with it because I've struggled my entire adult life, especially post-divorce, with feelings of I don't deserve anything good, that I've done these bad things, and therefore I don't deserve to be financially well off. I don't deserve to have a happy relationship. I mean, these are things that I've fought with and struggled with. But as I've untied those knots and straightened myself out and gotten back to my true nature of compassion and empathy, I can stand up now. I can say, I want to be the mayor of your town, and I really am the best candidate. And I can say that with complete honesty because I've integrated myself. I decided I couldn't live a double life anymore. So there's nothing in my private life that I'm ashamed of anymore. Mm-hmm. If I was in the Truman Show and there was a camera on me all the time, there's nothing to hide. I've integrated myself in that way. And that is why I can stand up now and say, I'm asking for your vote to be my mayor without any reservations, right, without any hesitation. So there are people, and I completely understand, especially if you've ever been in a situation of abuse, who can't forgive. And that's them. That's on them, and that's fine, because it isn't my place to tell somebody else how they should respond to hearing this. And if they don't vote for me because of that, I accept that. I accept that because I have done things in my past, and that can't be undone. And talking about it now doesn't undo it. And my record of service doesn't undo it. It's not as if somehow, me giving back to the community erase that. It's always there. And there, we all have to, like, my ex-wife and I have to live with it, and she has to live with it, and I can't undo that. And so I accept that. I accept if somebody says, this is a reason I can't vote for this person. I accept that. However, if I win the election, I hope people will give me the chance they gave me 10 years ago. I remember when I was running, that's all I wanted. I just wanted to, give me a chance. I will work so hard for you. I will give this all my all. And I feel like that even more now. I just want that opportunity to serve and to make people's lives better. It's really that simple. I just want to help people.
Yeah, you got caught up, it sounds like, from all of that and from kind of the things you hear right in the midst of cancel culture, which is big right now, kind of in the national conversation. I mean, sort of, what are your, that was very well explained. Like, what do you think about cancel culture kind of broadly across the spectrum? It seems like it's more and more of a trending thing on all the different social media platforms.
It really is. It's interesting because two people that I take inspiration from, Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. I was listening to NPR a couple weeks ago, and there's a movement in India to take Mahatma Gandhi's face off of the currency because early in his career, he wrote racist things about Africans. And so, again, cancel culture. Okay, he did that, so all the other things that he did are canceled. You can't revere the man any longer. Right. Martin Luther King Jr. apparently had an issue with infidelity. Not a problem I've ever had. Being faithful has come easy to me. But for him, that was a weakness. Does that take away from what he did for civil rights? I think we're in this area. If you look at, like, the heroes on TV, I've been watching a TV show on Netflix with my 16-year-old, and he says, what's the kind of the story here? Because the character is not necessarily a good person. The show is Dexter, so it's a serial killer who only kills serial. I love that show.
Exactly. It's a great show.
But he's like, we're in season 6. He's like, what's the moral here? I'm like, well, guys, this is how it is these days is we have these kind of gray heroes, right? Walter White from Breaking Bad. It was like, well, he's the protagonist, but he was also kind of the antagonist. And so I think people are growing towards an understanding that no one is perfect. Like one of my favorite superheroes, well, I'll say it. My favorite superhero is Batman. I love the story that this person had this tragedy as a child, but then turned that pain into something good and doing things for others, in a nutshell. Flawed character, though. Superman is not interesting. No one cares about Superman. He's perfect. No one likes a perfect person anymore. So there's a group that's kind of like, you know what? Michael Jackson may or may not have done some of the things he did. I'm not going to throw out his albums because I still recognize he's a gifted musician. Some other people are like, I'm throwing him out. I don't want to hear his music. I'm done with him. And so, again, it's when it involves children, it's, you start getting into some stuff. I mean, I've struggled with it. I've got a few songs on my phone that I'm like, do I keep them? Can I enjoy them? It's really, we're struggling. Like collectively, society is trying to make sense with this. And then you have the thing with Carson King, where the guy like does this great thing and raises millions of dollars for a children's hospital and attempts to get taken down for some teenage resharing of a tweet. I never saw the tweet to know how racist it was, but and people backlashed. They said, come on, like that's going too far. You're trying to tear this person down for doing this good thing based on this. And that to me is forgivable. A teenager sharing something that, and he even came out straight up, apologized, did the right thing, apologized for any hurt feelings. So yeah, it's, I don't have an answer. I mean, it's really, we're all kind of grappling with it, but the founding fathers of our country owned human beings. I mean, the Constitution has racist portions in it where a slave was considered 3/5 of a person, right, according to census. There's no women's right to vote in the Constitution, so it's a sexist. The original was a sexist document. So, if we can just look at that honestly and say, okay, that was acceptable then. Now, no, it's not. Absolutely not. We're working towards a more equal and fair and just world for people of all different types, but we also have to understand we're still doing that. We haven't arrived. And I think some people get frustrated when they want it to be perfect now.
Right.
We get that in our community. Some of the idealistic, it's like we want a clean community now. We want to everything to be that way immediately. One
of my favorite quotes, and you can take this with you, whether you wind up in the mayor's seat this time or in the future. And I don't know who said it originally. The first time I heard it was by the British theologian's not really the right term because he was such a rabid atheist journalist named Christopher Hitchens. We can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so you're talking about we need to help the poverty in Fairfield and in lots of towns across the country. Well, but it won't be absolutely perfect if we only do whatever else. Therefore, we should do nothing. We can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So